Age of Sigmar has no tactics. True or false? It's certainly true that the rules have been slimmed down. You only have to look at the fact that we only have 4 pages now. Compare that to these notes I took on the differences between 8th edition and the previous edition that I played. Not even the full rules, only the differences. So the question is, does the slimming down of the rules equate to less tactics? Let's look at it this way. Now we have quite a typical scene from 8th here. We have 2 blocks facing each other. You do have a little bit of freedom. You can rearrange them like so. But unless you were Bretonnian Knights, regardless of how wide you want to make the unit, you were limited to some kind of quadrilateral shape. Even skirmishers, to some extent. This scene here is how people perceive Age of Sigmar to be. But really, you've never had more freedom. In 8th edition, you could look at all those hundreds of rules as depth, or you could look at them as limiting your options. Really, all they've given us for Age of Sigmar is a framework for tactics. They've told us how far we can move, how close together our troops have to be, how close you can get to the enemy before you must engage them or move away. They've told us how we have to pile in, and what we have to roll on the dice to kill each other. But in terms of positioning, you can do whatever you want. So you look over that very short list of limitations and you decide for yourself, what formation is going to benefit my unit right now? Think of it less like controlling entire units and more like controlling hundreds of individual models. A few people have mentioned this one as a defensive formation. When the enemy come into you, because you're spread out and pile-ins go towards the closest model, they're not necessarily going to be able to get all their models into range to attack. But then with your pile-in, suddenly you could be getting a lot of attacks back on them. How about something crazy like this? When the knights charge in, they're going to start inflicting casualties, and now with their next pile-in they're going to have to start moving towards the closest enemy model, essentially splitting the unit, which is a very interesting conundrum. This could have many different applications in the game. Or, since the defending player chooses which models are removed, how about this? Suddenly the whole unit's going to be forced to shift in this direction, allowing you to control the flow of enemy troops. And this is just a very small piece of the tactical pie right here. There are also all the synergies and the war scrolls to think about. But really what it comes down to for me when determining how tactical this game is, I looked at it less like a unit-based game and more like individual model micromanagement within those units. And when you look at it that way, you suddenly realise that you have so many more options available to you. So your imagination is the only limiting factor. So the creative types among you are going to be able to have a field day with this. And I think this is a really interesting direction for Warhammer to go in. There aren't a whole lot of rules to memorise. The ones you need to know you pretty much have directly there in front of you on the war scrolls. Everything else is whatever's locked inside your brain. And if you can harness those thoughts and bring them to bear on the battlefield with interesting unit formations and positioning, then you're going to do very well. I didn't even touch on the alternating activations in close combat, and that is a really big slice of the tactical pie. So, Age of Sigmar has no tactics? I would say false. There is plenty of room to be extremely tactical in this game. The framework for those tactics has just been presented to us in a way that's unfamiliar. Once people wrap their brain around what this game is actually all about, and what you can do with a little bit of imagination, then it really opens the floodgates. So, in closing, if I may quote Total Recall, open your mind.